You are watching Leicester Till I Die TV.
Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform.
Or ask your smart speaker
To play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Good evening, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good night, goodbye. Hello, how the devil are you all? Welcome along, LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Do not adjust your screens. Yes, this is the T-shirt I am wearing. I just felt in a colourful mood. I needed cheering up today, so I thought, what can I do? So I thought I'd put this on. How are we doing? Highfields is in. Good evening, a jolly good evening to Highfields. Scott, great new introduction. Chris, thank you very, very much. Cassidy went back to Chelsea. Pochettino buggered me up, so I had to, not literally, obviously, but he messed me up, so I had to do a new intro because I got Cassidy in the old one. But thanks a lot, Scott. Welcome along. I am good. I hope you are too. And Nate is here as well. Good afternoon to you, Nate. How are you? Afternoon? Possibly still afternoon, or very, yes, it will be afternoon. What am I saying? Of course it is. How are you over there in the Arizonian desert? Yes, well, how are we feeling? The first double loss of the season. It had to happen. Totally honest with you, the performance wasn't good. We're obviously going to talk a lot about it now. But you know, we're going to have these. I mean, we've still only lost 5 games all season. You know, let's not, don't panic, Mr. Manning, don't panic. And of course, it's a little bit like maybe Middlesbrough just poked the bear a little bit, and maybe Leeds are thinking, I wish they maybe hadn't done that. I don't know. But then again, don't forget, of course, the last time we lost to Middlesbrough, yes, we went on to lose to Leeds not so long after. Right, let me bring my co-host in. I'm going to have a bit of a play because eventually I'll get the layout that I am looking for, and then I can bring him in and say, good evening, Brad.
Good evening, sir. It's good to see so many happy faces in, or jolly faces in, if you're Highfields.
Yes. Highfield says, smash the bookies, £100 for Man United to win with both teams to score. Nice one. Can I just say, I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to say congratulations to the women. Brad, well, let me just say, you know what his predictions are like. North Macedonia to win the Euros. You know where he is in the prediction table. Apparently the Leicester City women's are going to be in Europe next season. I don't know, but a good win for them, Brad.
Yeah, you've just spoken about doubles. Well, a good double for Leicester today. They completed a notable double over bottom side Bristol City to move themselves up to 7th in the table, 16 points, already smashing the total they achieved the last season and indeed the season before that, sitting very comfortably a whopping 10 points clear of the one relegation spot in the WSL. And, well, not many games to go, Chris, but they are 6 points off 5th place, which is European football. Who knows? Maybe it's the ladies' turn to go on a bit of a European tour next season. It is going well. And
how many go into Europe?
It's 5. This is 5 clubs going to
Europe. Is it? Oh, yeah. Right.
I believe it's the top 5 qualify. Right, they go into the qualifiers. I think like the top 2. It's a bit hazy with the European spots there because it is only a 12-team league. It's not a 20-team league is a bit more complicated. But that 5th place will get a European football. The 6 points off it's a long way to go. I mean, they have struggled against the top lot.
Yeah, there seems to be, like, I suppose, any of the major leagues, including sort of the Premier League for the men. You've got your Chelseas, your Man Cities, your Arsenal. They're obviously the big 3 in the Women's League. You've then got Man United, who are sort of trying to get in there and probably, on there, but they're quite a way off. Liverpool, their second season since coming back up, sit there in 5th on 22. But we are only 3 points behind Spurs, and we have got a 2-goal difference over them.
Yeah, so like I said, it's not just been a really good season thus far. We're having a good season all round. Like last couple of seasons, we saw the improvements last season, Chris, where Willie Kirk worked his magic a little bit, got them playing structurally. And this season, there was an overhaul of a good load of players. I did a transfer show with Jack from the Final Whistle. I always say his channel wrong. I think it's the Final Whistle.
It is the Final Whistle, yeah.
And we reviewed the ins and outs. There was lots of ins, lots of outs, but lots of experience brought in. And he's continued that in January. Our Japanese, I believe it is, international signing that we signed in January, she had a phenomenal game today. She got goals, she got assists. She's come in with goals since she's joined. So we're doing great business in the transfer front. Definitely more signings in the January window than the men's side. That wasn't hard. But yeah, they've got it. They've got the experience to back the manager, and that's what I like to see throughout the leagues. Whether it's the under-23s, the women's, the first team, they're being backed by the ownership now because we are in house. The women's are in house. Not all women's teams are in house, but ours are, and they're being backed, and he's being backed, and we're having a fantastic season. Like I said, already beat last season's point total. I think we only lost 6 games this season, Chris. 4 wins, 4 draws, so pretty even keel. Some close games against Man City at home, draw against Man United, at their place. So great season all round. That added experience is added in, and the women are doing great. So at least we had some positive for Leicester.
We did. Unfortunately, that is the women and not the men, but well done to the women. Yeah, look, it was a poor performance. And I guess if we were sat where we were sort of last season, I would have a completely different take on the result. I would be going absolutely mad now on that performance. One shot on target, and we'll come into the figures obviously later. But I can't, at the end of the day, it's only the 5th defeat. We expected a lot more than that, if we are honest. Yes, it was a double defeat. Somebody had to do it. Yeah,
someone was going to do it. I'm hoping it's the only team that do it, with us playing Leeds on the Friday. I mean, there isn't that many teams left that can do it, is there? No, there's obviously Hull and Leeds. I think after that, that's it. That's it. So it's going to be the highlight reel on their season, isn't it? If Middlesbrough don't get the playoffs on their DVD release or their YouTube release, season review, however they do it these days. So look, it wasn't nice, but it was always gonna probably have a good chance of happening because look, at the end of the day, we were poor, Chris. We were poor in most aspects, and even when Borough had their backs up against the wall, it took 6 attempts for us to get 1 goal back. You see it there 5 minutes ago, and realistically, yes, there was a chance we could have nicked the point at the end, and then you would have said, well, then Borough would have literally only had themselves to blame. But when you're having that many chances and you're taking to the 85th minute to put one in the back of the net, the result's only going to go one way, I'm afraid, when you start that half 2-0 down.
It is. And I look at that game and, I mean, as Enzo, I think Enzo said, bad day at the office, and it was. And, you can usually, and we're going to go through player ratings obviously later, and, you're going to pick one player out in particular that didn't have a good game. But if one player doesn't have a good game, or 2 at the most, you can usually carry it. But at least half the team, I mean, I probably, well, I said this yesterday on the post match, and I've written down here shit players, right? And I've written down KDH, Justin, Fatawu, Faz, Vestergaard, even Mavadidi, and even Vardy. Apart from the fact that he scored a goal, none of them turned up.
No, they didn't. And again, rare occasion that many players don't seem to turn up. Or I suppose turning up is all right. You noisy sod, get off
I'm
your
going to
hair
say
dryer.
that Deliveroo arriving for you.
Deliver something. Deliver down the end of the street and piddle off. Gordon Bennett. But no, I just think they just weren't on key. They just didn't look. They actually played, Chris, like a. It was almost like watching an FA Cup third round tie where neither team really cared because it was a championship versus championship side. So we put the kids out. You know, at some points it was so just disjointed. You know, we had players going inside, the pass was going down the line, or they were going down the line, the pass was going inside, or the ball over the top and they were coming short. It was just a mess, and it did feel like an FA Cup third round tie, you know, when a team makes 10 or 11 changes. It was weird. But, you know, we 30, 32, 33 games into the season? If that's the first weird performance I can look at and go, oh, well, we were that bad, then I'll take 1 out of 33.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We have to look at it and say, you know, how you know, it is. We are having an amazing season.
Yeah, of course we are. I mean, even if you were expecting Leicester to be up there, I don't think you expected Leicester to be that far ahead. I know people will be going, oh, well, you know, end of season nerves now. You lose to Leeds, you might lose it. Look, records and titles are nice in this division. Of course they are. It'd be nice to win it. It'd be nice to break a points record. It's great. But at the end of the day, even with that defeat, we're still 15 points off third, and that's what worries. That's the only thing I've got to care
12
about.
points off third.
No, sorry, 12 points.
Sorry, no, 11 points off third. Sorry, 11
Okay.
points off third and 9 points off second.
Yeah, so as long as that gap between third can keep it at more than arm's length, I'm not overly worried. And I have not seen us at any point this season give me anything to worry that we might suddenly drop the standard of it and give it up. And look, should we break the record the way we played the season? It's not a divine right, but we probably should be expecting it. I would be a little bit disappointed if we didn't win it. But if you said to me, do you want to get automatic promotion? Would you take second place? I'll snap your hand off because
Yes, of course.
we've been good enough to warrant that.
And that's it, isn't it? You know, I want to win it because I want one more than Man City. I want the record points because until somebody beats us, and it's going to be unlikely if we get as many as people are saying, but somebody will at some point. But until that point, that's another record we've got. We got so many records last season for the wrong reasons that it's nice. But, you know, if you said to me now, look, I'll guarantee you second, but you're obviously not going to get the actual title and you're not going to get the maximum points, I would so take it.
Oh, of course you would. You'd take any form of what it could be, as long as it gets us promoted, really, Chris. I still feel like 90 points will be enough to get you automatic promotion, just because every so often, and look, I know people say Southampton went on a 25 unbeaten run game, but you look where they are in the league then, because they should be top. When Man City went on a 25-game unbeaten run, it was 24 wins and a draw. When Liverpool did it in the COVID season, they went like 20-odd games unbeaten until they lost a random game to Watford, I think it was, near the end of it. They won 99% of them games. Southampton have been drawing. I mean, someone did a statistic. I saw it on Twitter, Chris. when we played Leeds or whenever it was we played them, we've gone on a 13 games since we played them, and the gap was 10 points. It's now 11 between us and third place, and we've got 13 games to go. So we've got a 1 more point gap with the same amount of games that they were 10 point. You know what I mean? Like, we've got 1 more point gap for the same amount of games that they still stayed 10 points behind us. So whilst you've got to give credit for Southampton going on a run, it just shows you the fact that they're still 11 points off us.
Yeah.
That
Let's talk about credit, because I don't want this to turn into a show where Middlesbrough only won because Leicester were bad, and because I hate that when clubs do that to Leicester. When we beat Liverpool and Man United when we were in the Premier League, it was never because we were good. It was always because they happened to be bad. So I don't want to turn it into one of those. And I've got to give credit to Middlesbrough, and I've put there reasons what went wrong. And the first one I put there is Marquez and Enzo out tacticked it, if that's a word. I don't know if it is at all, but you know what I mean. That we got hit on the break twice by the team, against the team as in us that's supposed to be good at hitting on the break.
You could have said that Enzo was tactically outfought.
I could have done. But that was done at 5 o'clock this morning because I couldn't sleep and my head wasn't basically in the right place. But you do get what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I'm just being facetious. You know what I'm like.
I do very much so.
I'm surprised I can even say facetious because I can't spell it.
But just we're going to remember though again. And you said yesterday on the review, on the post match reaction. Sorry, you said this is his first major job as a manager, apart from 12 games at Parma. It's Carrick has got more experience as a manager than Enzo has, but there are going to be times. Look at last couple of seasons. How often did I say, we've got this what was supposed to be this superb coach in Brendan, and yet it was being outthought by one guy who was standing in for manager at Bournemouth.
Sorry
to bring back the bad memories, but
and that's what you need. You need to kind of remember that this manager, he obviously has more of a managerial brain than most. Scott Parker's, Rooney's of the world, and that I think they could just retire and jump straight into managerial jobs. But there you go. But it is his first season, and I don't even think he was tactically outfought in a way. I feel like Middlesbrough aren't the first team, Chris, to come at us, put come at us, put pressure on us, try and hit us on the counter attack. They're just one of a very small handful of clubs that have possessed the quality to counter attack and not just that, Chris. They were clinical. We have said this numerous of match days whether we've won 2-0, whether we've won 5-0, maybe not because Stoke really were that bad. But we've played even Sheffield Wednesday, the game before, Chris. They had 2 or 3 golden opportunities. And we've said it before, a better team, a more confident team takes them chances and the game's a different outfit. And that's what we face. We face a Middlesbrough side that are going on a do or die end of season run to get in the playoffs. Because they weren't that far off even before the game, so the wins helped them out there. They're going to try and make a late show to the playoffs. They had nothing to lose and everything to game. They were one of a few teams that actually saw us, not as, Leicester, let's respect them, we will not beat them. That's the only way to go at them is go at them. And if we lose 3-1 swinging, we lose 3-1 swinging. But who knows? And that's where I think the players on the pitch were out for. And I'm not sure if it was really a tactical thing. Because like I said, other teams are set up the same way as Middlesbrough, and we've had no trouble. A little bit of fortune with some missed chances, but it's just one of them for me. I can't really. Well, we will because we'll go in depth on certain areas. There were certain areas where I think we lost the game, but tactical wise, I don't think that was actually one of them.
I mean, I'm going to say fair play to
Well, not
Middlesbrough.
in its entirety, anyway.
No, but fair play to Middlesbrough. They've done the double over us. Well done. I'm not going to whinge, like I say, and say that we were that bad. That was the reason they won. We didn't take our chances, yes, but they've done the double over us. Well done, Middlesbrough. Next one I put there: too many games, too few changes. We've had Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and the only change was up front. Daka Vardy, and we know that's going to happen, and that's been happening all season. Were the players, and I know I hate saying this because the professional athletes at the end of the day, and you see whether in the Olympics somebody like does a 200-meter run, and then the next day they go out and do it again in the next round. So why can't these players do that? And it's not like we're exactly ball-bustingly fast when we play. We play at in second gear, but should there have been more changes made at the start, or
the problem is, Chris, is we're actually unfortunately in a bit of a sticky situation when it comes to changes because first of all, Nelson couldn't play because he picked up a knock, so we couldn't change anything really at the back. Still don't trust Doyle enough to have changed anything on the left, and JJ didn't deserve. Well, I'd question his position in the team after his performance yesterday, but going into that game, there was no way you're changing either him or Ricardo.
no?
And the problem is, one was our fault, one isn't our fault. We lost Cassidy. Now, whether you liked him or not, he was an extra body that we could have played. We probably played against Sheffield Wednesday and allowed someone like Pratt or Dewsbury Hall a rest. We haven't gotten Didi for another 6 weeks or whatever it is. He won't be back till March, April, I think it is. So 6 to 8 weeks. We had the players available. Unfortunately, we lost the loanee, and because Leicester, Inter, the player, the agents, whichever one it was, we faffed around on getting the replacement in to cover one of Cassidy and Ndidi. And unfortunately, as much as we keep mentioning Bray Booker Alvarez, they're never making the bloody team, Chris. So they can't be that special, or Enzo can't think they're that special in their recovery if they're not getting in, they're not playing, they're not getting 5 minutes here or there. I don't know what it is they're doing. I don't think we have the correct depth to make wholesale changes like we were in the first half of the season, Chris.
I know your point, and we'll come on to that more because we'll have a look at the actual team that he picked and the subs. Made 5 subs. But it was all like for like, and I couldn't believe it when I saw Cannon on the wing. I'm thinking, hang on, have we suddenly got Roy Hodgson in the dugout? We'll have Vardy on corners next, and Vardy are playing on the wing. What is the point of bringing a striker on when you've got wingers on the bench? And sticking that striker who knows where the net is, he's been scoring goals, sticking him on the bloody wing for God's sake.
Yeah, it was a strange one because they made the sub at half time, which he's kind of refrained from doing a little bit. Things are usually A, going well, so he doesn't feel the need to, and B, he normally waits 10, 15, 20 minutes into that first half, to the second half, sorry, to make any changes. It was kind of like, oh, maybe they're going 2 up front, and I expected a change in the shape. I really did, because we took.
I think we all did. I mean, when I think it was you said, "Oh, Cannon's on," I immediately presumed Daka had gone off.
Well, yeah, that's what I looked for. Then I noticed as it came up on the LTID. No, it didn't come up on here. It came up on Leicester Hub that Mavididi had come off. I was then thinking, right, okay. So Pratt in the middle, Fatawu in that number 10 role, because that's the only thing I saw, because we'd lost a winger, and Cannon and Daka aren't wingers, and Daka was in the middle. So I was like, okay, so he's going 4-3-1-2. He's trying to combat Middlesbrough's middle running with our own. But yeah, I said to you, Chris, I think I said it in the watch along post match, I forgot Cannon was on the pitch until he actually moved him into the middle. And I saw this on Twitter, actually, X, whatever you want to call it. Something that did go unnoticed about Cannon's performance, and it's because he spent so long anonymous and out on the left. He actually assisted the goal for
Yeah.
Vardy with a great little flick, and that just frustrated me a little bit because I'm thinking, well, why wasn't he there from the second he came on in the second half? Maybe the second half would have been different.
But then they've got
Hindsight.
to allow the fact that, Marquez still, learning, like we said earlier.
Yeah, of course, and then you take it into a thing, and as much as you work on secondary things on the training ground, he may have felt that the personnel change meant that there was a change in movement. Players getting in a bit. Vardy can sit, Adaka or Vardy can sit forward a bit because Cannon's like a deeper forward. He's going to come in and collect the ball and become a wide option. So he's still learning to kind of mess around a little bit. And you don't want to make wholesale changes, do you? I mean, some of these teams in any division, Chris, they have free bloody tactics. They'll play at home this way, they'll play away this way, they'll play Man City that way, they'll play Sheffield United, well, with their under 16s because Sheffield United are crap. But you know what I mean, Chris.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have three different tactics depending on where they are in the league, who they are, and if they're home or away, and whether it's sunny, raining, bloody the monks have been around. I don't know. Whereas Leicester try and keep it very simple, and I think that even though it eventually worked, and we'll talk a bit about the tactical tweak that led to the goal, it came a little bit too late, and that kind of tells me that he's just learning to trust the second technique behind it as well as the players are.
Yeah. You said this at the end of the match day live post match reaction. We only play for 10 minutes. If you only play for the last 10 minutes, you're not going to win games.
No. And in fact, I'll be perfectly honest. I know we're going to do a full in-depth rating at the end of the show, but when you do at the end of the show, Chris, you always ask me, Kate, Luke, and obviously your man Alan, who gives you the match ratings on the game, to give you a rating. And until that last 10 minutes, Chris, it was a generous 2 at best because nothing was working, nothing was coming off. It was hard to watch at times, some of the passes. I mean, at one point, JJ had 10 yards of space left, right, and in front of him and passed it to Philbert the Fox. It was like, I don't even know how a bad day at the office results in such a bad pass, but that's how bad we were. Let's be honest with you.
Yeah. And we've discussed too many players has an off game. We've discussed that. Bad day at the office. Only 5 losses all season. We don't need to have a meltdown. I mean, look at that. I mean, how bad do we need to be?
No, exactly, Chris. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, Southampton have a game in hand, and that just means they'll overtake Leeds and put us 8 points, in second place before we play again. At the end of the day, Chris, he's now on Leicester because that cluster of teams is getting smaller and smaller. I mean, you look at Ipswich, they are 12 points out of it. But we're also in that point where not just the group of teams get smaller in terms of who we're in contest with, the amount of games left are getting smaller. So West Brom downwards, I'm not interested in. Don't care if West Brom win. Don't care if they lose. Don't care if they draw. Don't care. They're not catching us. They're so far behind us. So the more we can keep going, if we get back on a winning track and we keep beating teams, because you just feel like we're going to beat teams. There's teams we've got to play, like the Prestons, the Halls, Sunderland's again. Norwich is another one we've got to play. I think West Brom's another one, and they're at home. And obviously Southampton, obviously the obvious one, Leeds. Then we've got the bottom half of the league in the greatest respect. Your Cardiffs. We've played them twice. Sorry, your Birmingham's. We got Millwall again. We played them twice. But anyway, my point stands. I don't see a way that somebody like West Brom and sooner rather than later, Chris, you're going to take Ipswich out of that equation, and then it literally is going to be the 3 relegated sides from last year fighting it out for first and second. Yeah. And saying that goal difference is worth an extra point. I think even if the worst case happened, Chris, we're in a good position because of our goal difference. So I'm not overly worried. There's no need for a meltdown. If we suddenly go on a 4-game losing streak and drop out of top spot, maybe. But right now, no. There's no.
Just looking at our running. Of course, we've got Bournemouth in a couple of weeks on the Tuesday. Then we've got Saturday. We're at home to QPR, which you think. I'm not taking anything for granted because look, we struggled against QPR last time, but we've got QPR at home. Then we're away to Sunderland on the Tuesday. Then on the Saturday we're away at Hull. Then we are on the Friday night at home to Southampton. Following Friday, for some reason, we're on the Friday night against Bristol City. I think that was probably done when they still had Nigel Pearson in charge. And then into April, we're home to Norwich, home to Birmingham, a midweek trip to Millwall, away to your favourite club, Plymouth, home to West Brom, and then the last two games are away to Preston, home to Blackburn. So we haven't got them, and no disrespect to those clubs, it's not the hardest running.
No, it's not. And again, it to me, it's just there's too many games where, and you don't want to take anything for granted in football, but there's too many oppositions we come up against, especially with like your QPRs and that coming up soon, where I just feel Leicester are going to pick up 3 points. So I mean, realistically, yes, there's 13 games left of the season, but realistically, after Leeds, to say there's 12, half of them are winnable. So that's 18 more points on the board. So that would put us on 96 points. I just don't see why there's no need for a meltdown. And I think you saw that with reaction. I think you saw that with the reaction to the post-match, Chris. If we were the same points gap between us that there is Leeds and Southampton, there might have been a bit of an uproar and a cause for meltdown, like we're going to bottle it. But we're in such a good position, which we've warranted and earned throughout the majority of the season to have, that I'm just not worried at the moment. There's too many teams that are far more easier, should I say, for us to go out and get a result and beat with how little games are left of the season.
Just for we've got about 5 games against top half teams, so we've got 5 top halves and about 5 bottom half. James, good evening. How are you? Don't like getting after a local lad. Not sure Payson McAteer, the top championship player. We'll come on to the players a bit later and talk about them individually. Again, look, you're looking at a player in Casey McAteer that's had 25 games under his belt. Let's not judge these players on 25 games. Vardy, when he came to us, how many games did it take him to get correct? It took him at least a season.
Well, yeah, I mean, people seem to forget or maybe don't know that if it wasn't for Nigel Pearson and his backroom staff sitting him down when we had that horrendous, forever mentioned playoff second leg loss to Watford, which I blame Harry Kane for because he bottles silver wherever he goes. Just ask Bayern fans and Spurs fans, obviously. But he nearly packed it in. He didn't think he was good enough. He couldn't cut the cloth at the higher end of football. He was thinking of either retiring and go down to the lower leagues and getting a job. And it took a strong backroom staff and a strong manager to put his arm around him and big him up. And, when times go as well as they do, thank God he did, because look how his career's turned out.
Yes,
and you've got to have a bit of patience. You don't become unless you're a freak of nature DNA, like a Messi or a Ronaldo, where you're just born like a half cyborg, half human, it feels like, a really good player has to find a way to peak. And realistically, Jamie Vardy found his prime thanks to a very good manager that coached him into one. And that championship season with him, Wood and Nugent proved it.
Yes, indeed. So let's give the young lad, time to mature. So and all you can see from the graphics there, just to say, whoscored.com is where I get the graphics from. If I use the graphics, I do like to give the websites a shout out. It's only fair. Form table. Look, we're third in the form table. Leeds are first. There's 5 points different between our form with Leeds. Leeds has been on win-win on the last 6, win-win-win. But it's got to end sometime, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does. It all has to end at some points, and again, picking up a 6-win streak, very good for them, very well deserved. But they've shown their frailties, which is why in this table it looks great for them. In the league table, it's looking very decent. Obviously, they're second, but it's not as close as they'd like it to have been.
No.
I know the fans of Leeds and both Southampton were a lot more cautious about this season than maybe the media and bookies' expectations, which is probably a fair assumption. But I think even some Leeds fans were like, oh. And I know they might be hoping that Leicester crumbled and they can catch us, but they must be looking at that league table thinking, God, I know we've done well this season, but how impressive have Leicester been?
Yes.
At this point in normal seasons, Chris, that would be a very close title race.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I've got to say, I'm guessing it's a Leeds fan. Maybe not. Maybe he's a Southampton or a West Brom fan. But somebody commented on this video, not in the comments here, but on the comments on YouTube underneath. And he put, I hope you lose against Leeds just to make it an exciting run-in. And I kind of, or words to that effect. And I kind of get where he is coming from, because this was the Premier League and we were Manchester City. We'd be going, bloody hell, isn't this getting boring? So I do understand totally where he's coming from. Also, we've got Carl coming on Thursday with myself and Craig. Now, Carl's a big friend of the channel. He's a Leeds fan based up in Scotland. And
poor sod. Oh, you're frozen.
Am I back?
No, you're back. You're back.
And he was saying they feel, because I said how you feel. He said, we feel confident, and quite right. And I'm just thinking, and just to quickly mention that game, and then we'll look at the team. If they start off badly or we get an early goal, the crowd at Ellen Road, might be thinking like, well, come on, this is a game we should be winning. We've beaten this lot once already.
I don't know. I when you're having a good season, you listen to how our crowd reacted to going 1-0 and 2-0 down, and even the second half of the game, it kind of can wake them up a bit. And sometimes the worst thing you can do to a team is score past them. I know that sounds ridiculous to say, because you probably think, well, but how else are we going to beat them? Well, if Leicester score early, the earlier they score, Chris, then they better be up for getting a second and a third, because Leeds will keep coming at us, knowing they've got plenty of time. If anything, I want Leicester to maybe unsettle Leeds a bit, get them behind them, break them up, and that will frustrate the crowd. If Leicester are ahead and countering any punch that Leeds try and throw, then that'll be the case. Leeds seem to be a team that if you wake them up early enough, like you say, prodding the bear for Leicester losing this game, firing up to beat Leeds, it could go that way. So it'd be nice though. I mean, a couple of early goals would probably change the game, but
yeah. I know you're wearing an hoodie there, but can you go out and buy another one that's a bit light, because it looks like I'm just talking to a head sometimes.
You are. I am
you sat behind the dark curtain.
I tell you what, here, you ready? You ready? Costume change.
I
feel like I should be like teasing some ladies watching and just throwing my shirt over. So this is.
Hey, yes, with the body. No, it's just the way that one moment when you were totally in front of your curtain with the dark hoodie with the dark curtain, and it looked like I was just talking to a head.
That's the only place that's got any common sense in it.
Well, oh wait, let's look at this lineup, because I'm not gonna lie. I saw that lineup come up and I thought, yes, this is our strongest team, which technically on paper again it should be. But like I said, we'd had Saturday games. Maybe we are relying on some of these players too much. And when you look who's on the bench, you'd got Cody, who could have come back, Doyle. Eunice could have sat in there for Pratt. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, excuse me.
Now you just rude sneezing that many times.
Cannon. So there are changes that he could have made, and then brought these players on later. And I'm just wondering. I go sneeze again. Oh, I hate that. When you're about to sneeze and you don't. I totally hate that. But I'm just thinking like he does it with the striker. 60 minutes for one of them, then 30, then there will be 60 and 30 the other way around for the next game. He could be doing that with some of the other players as well, especially, when we've got the midweek game.
Yeah, and it's a good argument to make because we you look at other teams in the Championship and they might turn around and you ask them that question and they'll turn and go, yeah, but we haven't really got that quality in our depth. We've got a few players, but they're, under 21s. I mean, Middlesbrough played their bloody reserve keeper, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they had to, yes.
Yeah, that's what, so like I said, whereas Leicester, whether you love it or hate it, they've got Stolarczyk and Ward. They've got a decent backup to go out there. And again, Cannon, Vardy, so it did surprise me. I think it surprised us more that it wasn't rotated in for Sheffield Wednesday. Maybe that memory that we struggled against Sheffield Wednesday was the reason to do it. But I do feel that there is a couple of players on that bench, especially, and I know he came on, but especially the likes of Atgun. They can't impress. They can't impress in 10, 15 minutes. You're not going to, you always say, Chris, you can't do 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there and expect miracles. You've got to give them a consistent running games. And whilst you could, that old expression, don't change a winning team is there, you've got to manage your workload, Chris. And if you're not going to change it for the, you're not going to change it for the midweek game after playing the same team on a Saturday, that's fine. And I'm not saying everybody needs a change, but, and I'm sorry to say this, Chris, you could have dropped Vestergaard and put in Cody. Hindsight.
I agree totally. That's why I mentioned Cody.
Yeah, hindsight, knowing how badly he performed this game, and he did perform badly, Justin could have been dropped for Doyle.
Hindsight's wonderful, isn't it?
I know, it just stings your eyes when the beam flicks out.
Oh.
I mean, Cannon maybe could have started. I know, he could have maybe started the game, give us a different dimension.
There are changes there that could have been made, and then there's always that option. There's always that question, isn't there? Is do you start with your best players and get and get a lead and then swap, or do you start and then maybe see you struggling and bring your better players on and maybe don't get the win? I'm just wondering that when we look at how many players underperformed, whether they were actually not necessarily physically knackered, but mentally knackered.
There's a case to that. They also didn't. They seemed a little bit frazzled, didn't they? Because, like I said, it almost seems like the connection that these players have shown they have to be able to pass a ball into space, knowing someone's there, was a little bit lost as well. Like I said, passes down the line, the player they're passing to's gone inside, and vice versa. It just seemed a little.
They couldn't pass wind in this game.
No, they really couldn't. It was really. Like I said, Chris, I called it our worst 80 minutes of football I have seen us play. It really was that bad in terms of passing and final balls and defending as well. I mean, I've never seen a defensive line not know how to press because they were more U-shaped than a line. It was the worst line I've ever seen in football. But
yeah. I mean, we were going to get Craig on, but he's only just come in, so I kind of said, I just relax.
Yeah, and he's old. He'll need his medication on us.
Yeah, get your carpet slippers on, Craig, and just sit down and have a cup of soup.
Hey, carpet slippers, mate.
I've got a couple of pairs there. I'm not knocking them. But he did actually mention, because I heard booing at half time. And if you remember, I did mention that to Kate, who had been there. Apparently, that he was saying it was aimed at the officials. And the official, and I still would sooner have the official, and I know he was an ex-Premier League referee, but I would sooner have the officials that will sometimes have a bad game in this division than the ones in the top division that seem to have a lot of bad games, even when they got two guys helping them on a Space Invader machine. But that's, basically that's what the booing was. I mean, I've got to say, in fairness to Enzo, I don't think he could, apart from getting just when he made the substitutions of sticking still with the same formation, and I don't get that somehow because that's not a plan B. That's just a plan
No.
A+1, if you like.
Yeah.
He took off Mavididi, who I thought, in fairness to him, probably wasn't necessarily having a bad game, but was being played out of it. He'd got two players on him all the time.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough were marking him out. They took Fatawu, who wasn't impressive for me, off. Dewsbury Hall, he took off. Daka, who, in fairness, did miss quite a few in that game. So he seemed to actually saying, yes, I can see the players that I need to change, and he changed them, but then change things around because it's got to make any difference because Middlesbrough were thinking, oh, all right, you brought those players on, but you're still playing the same way.
Yeah, and I think maybe the penny dropped for Enzo and he kind of braved something a bit different. I actually think near the end of that game when we really did throw the kitchen sink and everything else at them, we actually did switch to a more narrow 4-3-1-2 because even though the goal came from like a little inside overlap, it was closest to the box. It wasn't like a ball down the line, was it? It was a ball over the top. It was the chances we were creating were in and around the box. We weren't trying to get a cross in from the corner flag area or the byline. We was all in and around the box, and that's when we really pinned Middlesbrough back and had the backs against the wall. And look, on another day, Chris, if we'd have done that from the start and them substitutions would have made a bit more sense, in terms of position-wise to where they were playing, not in terms of personnel, could have got a point. And also, we talk about making wholesale changes to a team, Chris. We'd have been sat here, or other fans would have at least been sat here moaning, saying, this is what, if we'd have played Cannon and Atgun and that from the start, fans would have been moaning that we should have played our strongest team. So
he couldn't win either way. He either makes
No.
too little or too many changes or the wrong changes.
Yeah.
Let's be honest with you. It's the joy of being a manager. Look, I'm going to let you. I'm going to bring the next slide up, which is the match summary. So it's like the strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to let you talk through that and your overall thoughts about how the game played out and the tactics, because I need to go and water the plants, and I also need to go and get another drink. So I'll let you have your tactical moments while you look at those.
Well, I mean, the tactical moments really. It was a game of. It felt like it was in a different universe, personally, because it was not the Leicester that we'd become accustomed to this season. I mean, tactically, nothing really changed. We were 4-3-3. One through the middle, compact the midfield, have Ricky P and Justin push on in attack and do their duties to get back and doing it. And Middlesbrough are like a handful of teams. Hull did it to us early in the season. Cardiff actually did it to us in the home game for the majority of it against us. And even teams that we brushed aside, like your Rotherhams and your Plymouths and your Swanseas, and even your Blackburn away is probably the most notable one I can remember, is they tried to combat us with a counter-attack of our own. And like we've seen this season, only 5 times has that worked. And I'd probably say only 3 times has that actually worked in a counter-attacking way. Leeds and Middlesbrough twice. I mean, at the Riverside, we absolutely battered them for chances. I think we hit the crossbar and hit the post. This game was a complete contrast to that. We were stuttery in the midfield. And whilst we had 80-90% possession at the majority of times, what we lacked was a cohesion. And Middlesbrough sensed that. And I think it's something that managers have picked up on through the season. And this is where the step up will be a concern for Leicester getting back to the Premiership, is we start a first half very, very slowly. We build our way into the game. We like to feel our way into the game. We like to get foot on the ball. We like to get our feet, dig our studs in and get a feel for the game. We like to pass the ball around, look really pretty with it, but we don't really go anywhere with it. And when we do, we're 6 versus 6, we're 5 versus 5, we're 8 versus 8, because we have that cautiousness. And this was the first time, probably all season, that a team in that first half punished Leicester for being a bit slow, because what Carrick instructed his players to do was sit deep, but not in your own box deep, right? And yeah, I know people say, Brad, the defenders were in the box all the time, but what they had is they had the spring players ready to go. We usually have Dewsbury Hall on the left and Winks on the right, ready to cause that spring for Leicester. What Middlesbrough did was absolutely the same as what we usually do to oppositions, Chris. Is they had their defenders in the box and their midfielders on the edge of the box, and then they had their wingers and their forward men in nowhere positions. And what I mean by nowhere positions is they were no danger to Leicester because they were attacking, but they kind of thought they were going to be a danger if Middlesbrough took the ball. And the 2 goals, if you really look back at them, Chris, Middlesbrough turned a even 6-on-6 into a 4-on-3 or a 4-on-2 in their favour. And that's where Leicester got beat by Middlesbrough and Carrick's tactics, because other teams, Chris, would sit totally back. Middlesbrough kind of went, well, let's not go too defensive. Let's be mindful, but let's have a few pockets of space. If you stand there and you stand there, we can still hit them on the break. And that's what Middlesbrough accomplished very well throughout the game. Even in the second half, when we were still in control and trying to get back into the game, they still sprung away and had a couple of chances to really have killed us off in that game as well. So it wasn't like it was a game of 2 halves.
I don't really want to go too much, because we discussed the game itself and the goal and every individual thing sort of in the post-match reaction. But I just want to talk, because, Vestergaard's, it's been mentioned he may be being offered a new contract. Now, you know my feelings on Vestergaard. I think, I like the guy because I think he's done really well in turning things around, I don't think he was... Look, he was bought when we didn't need that sort of player, despite what Rodgers said. I think it was just a desperation move. But he's turned around and proved, what a good player he is. But what he also proved at the weekend is I don't think he's the number one for that position when we get up to the Premier League, because he was caught out. I mean, Faze was caught out for speed. Although he said that he's fast, and he was getting back, but he wasn't catching that winger for the first goal. And when you look over, I mean, he'd almost given up, Vestergaard. He was never like, I think I described it as when you're running for a bus and you see the bus pulling out, and you're like, well, pretend I'm not running for it, and you slow down to a walk. It was almost like that, and that worries me. Nelson, I think, is going to be more that role moving forward, because he has got the speed, but is he going to be ready in time? That's the thing, and that's the worry for me. And I think, much as I like Vestergaard for how he's turned it round, I don't think he's our number one choice for that going forward.
No, and I think if Vestergaard signs an extension, it's probably not a case of to be playing. I think it's more a case of I think that's more showing how good of a man manager at least Enzo's been, because whether it's 10 pence or maybe a couple of million at most, I feel like if he is to sign a new contract, he probably knows he's not going to cut the mustard at top level. Maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe he does feel like he can cut the mustard at top level, but he's certainly given the signs that he's not going to have the credentials to do it. I feel like it's more of a tough to just go, thank you very much for getting my career back on track. I'm not going to leave you potless. If I don't know, if Southampton want to bring me back next season, if they don't go up or whatever, you can get 2 million for me. It's like a little top of the cap to say thank you for your faith repaid.
Yeah. I just think, having watched him and actually I do like him, that, but I'm trying to be honest here, and I was watching him against Middlesbrough, and I'm thinking, my God, some of those Premier League, the top 6, top 7 teams in the Premier League can have a field day. They give Vestergaard a 3-yard start and still run past and get the ball and put it in the back of the net. But look, moving on, that you know my thoughts about how many attempts you have in a game, but this is poor from a team that is top of the league. Yes, well done. They had 24 chances, 1 on target. That simply is not good enough. And again, I'd probably be more mad if we weren't sat clear at the top of the league. But 24 attempts and only 1 of those actually on target, which was obviously the goal. It's a 4% return. Look at, five attempts for Middlesbrough, 2 on target, 40% return. Those 2 were the goals. I know the only one thing that matters at the end of the day is that we got 1, they got 2. But 1 out of 24 is just not good enough, is it?
Yeah, and that's probably the clarity in what you need to see in that game. Because if you were just to flick on to maybe Sky or something like that, where they only show you a couple of stats, they don't show you all the stats, you just look at that as a neutral, and you'd have seen the score, and you said, "Oh, really? Oh, Leicester lost." And then they showed you maybe shots and corners and whatnot, and then you looked at it and went, "Bloody hell, they must have been robbed. 5 shots to on target." Not knowing that they'd had 2 on target and Leicester only had 1. You think, "Oh God, Leicester have been fleeced. They must have been, their keeper must have had an amazing game." No, he literally picked the ball out of his net. We gave him nothing to do, and that is the one frustrating thing, because I don't like, maybe it's because I'm part of the goalkeepers union. I don't like the fact.
Are you?
I know, breaking news, I'm part of the goalkeepers union. But I don't like the fact that when a second choice goalkeeper or an under 23s goalkeeper or whatever he is to Middlesbrough gets picked, everybody in the crowd suddenly forgets that there's 10 other players in front of him and probably thinks apparently we should be scoring from the halfway line. We should be shooting from our own half, because
we should be testing him, shouldn't we, by at least getting shots on target?
We should have, but also, again, you talk about when Leicester play well and other teams play badly, it's always bad them, bad this, bad that, never good Leicester. Middlesbrough bodies in front of Leicester, Fatawu, who we'll talk about more when it comes to the individual ratings, was forced to shoot from outside the box. We were putting in killer balls across the box that have got us 60-70% of our goals this season, balls diagonally across the box, left unmarked, tapping in open nets. They were getting blocks in on the first ball. Set pieces, that's something that the only solution we have to get is find someone who can cross a bloody ball in. But, they were dealing with pretty much everything Leicester had. And for the first time, Chris, we actually had a team going, "Well, go on then. We're going to keep you 25 yards at bay. I don't care how good you are." The Middlesbrough were basically saying, unless we screw up, which they kind of did in the last 10 minutes, for 80 minutes, they were pretty much saying to Leicester, "Put it in the top corner. It's the only way you're scoring, because you're not scoring from inside our box."
No.
And that was the only way we were looking like scoring for 80 minutes, Chris, was a worldie in the top corner that never arrived.
Apparently, and again, we discussed this in the reaction. Winks, it must have been against Sheffield Wednesday, but it was the first time in all the matches this season, he hadn't got 90% pass accuracy. He'd got 89%. And when you look at the passes here, and this just makes me laugh every time, 641 passes. All right, our average pass streak was 6 in a run. It was 5, but they only made 407. But that makes me laugh. Oh, look, what a good passing side they are. No, we're not, because it's as I replied to Kate, who sent me that particular fact on Twitter. I said it's Winks, Vestergaard, Winks, Justin, Faz, Justin, Winks,
Kate,
Hermanson, Winks. No wonder they're getting 641 bloody passes. 640 of those are between the defence and the goalkeeper.
We'll just look at that bottom stat, Chris. 641 passes, 581 were short passes. 581 were short passes. Now, I don't know what defines as a short pass, but I'm sure it's probably in the same bracket as the Bellend days when it was a 5 yards. Remember when I used to do the training ground? That's all I used to say. I feel like it's 5 yards or less. It must be a short pass, and you've just described how the passes go. Now, I know there'll be a few totaling up between wing back and winger, and a nice little play inside. That's probably still, I would say, out of them 581 short passes, 500 of them were between our defence and goalkeeper and maybe winks, because that's what we do. And I get why we do that. I'm not knocking that we do that. I'm just explaining why we do that and why we have such high numbers in that area. I mean, to be fair, Middlesbrough aren't too far off that. They're probably closer in terms of numbers as well. Actually, they're 48. 55 passes were long passes according to that. And we've got 48 long ones there. The maths ain't nothing for me. Maybe that's just my brain. So they weren't much better at going more adventurous. But again, the teams are so equal in everything they did where it counts, Chris. That probably tells you why we were short passing as well, because they were doing the same.
Don't forget, everybody, by the way, that Leicester, because of the home team, are orange and Middlesbrough are blue. It's annoying, but this is where they do this they don't change the colour for every team, unfortunately. The home team's always orange.
I think they'd have home kits, wouldn't you? So at least it'd be like blue for Leicester, red for Middlesbrough. But, there we go.
Yeah, well, the other one I did actually put the badges at the top, but I forgot. I couldn't be asked for this one. Just having a very quick look at the old positional report. Striking forward, pretty even, 29% down the left side, 33 in the middle, 38 down the right side. I do think, like you say, Mavididi was being played out of the game. I don't think he necessarily had a bad game. I just think he wasn't, being able to get past sort of having two players on him all the time. In regards to the shot direction, 71% of that was coming through the centre. Funnily enough, for Middlesbrough, 0% on that on their left side, which is our right side. And I've got it. Whatever you say about our wingers, we have got wingers now that defend, which is something we've not always had in the past, Brad.
No, we've not. And again, that comes from an understanding of the likes of JJ and Ricky P knowing when to stick and twist, whether they should push on and get in support of it, or whether they should just hold back a little bit, be in and around that 25, 30 yard area. So in case we do get caught out, they can get back quickly, because that's a very grueling demand to ask for a wing back, an inverted wing back, to do for 90 minutes. Seeing them stats, it would be weird to see if Middlesbrough are commonly at 0 or low percentage down that left hand side, because maybe we should have forced them onto that side if that was the case being, you know what I mean? So
you can see there. Then we've got action zones. Most of the game did end up in the Middlesbrough third. We just didn't do much with it when we got it there. And certainly they had no shots from inside the box. And I've got to say, really, Hermansen had very, very little to do. I mean, if he touched the ball 5 times, and twice of that was to get the ball out the bloody net. Yeah,
it was. He didn't have a bad game. In fact, if you wanted a player that, you kind of go, meh, didn't do bad, didn't do anything spectacular, it was probably Mads Hermansen, because
he didn't have to, because they didn't pose a threat apart from those 2 times. And we've always said, haven't we, no matter how good or bad a goalkeeper is, if his defence is rubbish in front of him, he's just like he's like an open target, isn't he?
Yeah, it is. It's literally shooting practice for Middlesbrough. And the 2 goals, there's nothing he can do about them. There's nothing he can do. He's left exposed by his defence. There was some dodgy defending in miscommunication from the defence, because 2 pushed up, 2 stayed back, which is why, ironically, the ball that came from the left from their first goal were played in, because he had that defensive communication been on par and they'd all been pushed up, he wouldn't have even been onside enough to to
No.
do it. But there is honestly nothing that Madison could have done about either goal.
I am now going to hide under the table.
Oh dear.
And I would suggest most people do this as well, or if you've got a tin hat, at least put that on, because this is where Brad chooses a player who may be good, may be bad in the game, and tell us about that one particular player. And today, the player he wants to talk about, drum roll,
It's
all yours, Brad, all yours.
Right, put your pitchforks away. Right, listen to me. Hear me out. Hear me now, rude boy, as some chaps would say. Hear me. Listen to me. What I'm about to say. This was one of, if not his worst performance in a Leicester shirt. Right, okay, get your rage, get your screaming, get your emojis like that going, how dare you say that about Kieran Dewsbury Hall? But he was, Chris. He was, guys. He was awful. That was his worst game I remember in a Leicester shirt. And the reason I want to pick him out is because it was so defining to some of the moments in the game, both potentially good and bad for Leicester. And this is his indecisiveness, Chris. Kieran seems to be a player that, for me, when he's going at full throttle and he's running at the edge of the box and he's running off Vardy so he can get the ball played into him and he doesn't really have time to think, bang, best player on the pitch. He's there, he's in the space, he's getting the goals, he's laying it in for the assist. He's bam, 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 wham, bam, thank you, man, 8 out of 10. Yesterday, Chris, he had too much time on his hands and he did not know what to do with himself. He really didn't. There was at least 2 attacks, Chris, and maybe Enzo takes a little bit of blame here for the way he was, right? Because there was 2 attacks, Chris, where a slightly risky through ball would have seen Daka or Pratt get through on the right-hand side. And he looked in their directions, and any striker will tell you when you make a run, they better be passing that ball because they're going to run offside. They're running to get the ball played through to them, and if you play it too late, they're offside, the flag's going to go up. And he looked to play it, and then he kind of saw someone like Mavididi 5 yards in space, but not really, 3 players in front of him. Like, yeah, he's got the easy pass to the left, but he's doing nothing going forward. Whereas playing that risky pass that maybe the defender mistimes the slide, doesn't get the blocking properly, and he goes through to him, we go on and score. This is why I say maybe it's the Enzo part. He seemed to stutter, change his mind, and go, oh no, I've got to give it Mavididi. I've got to give it Mavididi because he's 100% pass, 80% success rate. And that was such a frustrating thing. We broke away so many times with him on the ball, and he just didn't seem to know what to do. He didn't know whether to run with the ball. He didn't know whether to pass it into the space. He didn't know whether to try and thread the ball through. He didn't know whether to have a go himself. And I felt like Enzo was going to treat him like a naughty kid on the playground that was winding, the staff teacher up, and he was going to grab him by the scruff of the neck and pull him in, and 50 lashes like they used to give in the old days for the cane. Please do not assume I'm incurring violence upon Kieran just, but I'm just making the comparison. Get dragged off by the scruff of the neck because he was livid with him. He was woeful and nowhere near.
Bring back Birchin, that's what you're saying.
Well, maybe. But my point is, Chris, I don't understand how we can get 2 versions of Dewsbury Hall. The Dewsbury Hall that runs forward, gets the ball when he asks for it, right? And he's all happy as Larry to then make the pass or go off and get himself into situations and areas where Madison and Barnes used to for us last season, kind of pockets of spaces. So Vardy or Ian Atchell or whoever could play the ball through to him and make that run on, could then do the complete opposite contrast when it's his responsibility. It is, and I know we don't want to put wholesale responsibilities on people, Chris, but him and Winks have that responsibility. You are our strongest middle men. You are our strongest men in that midfield three, whether it's Pratt or Ndidi or Atgun that's with them in that three. They are the two that them forward players are relying on for them to pass them the ball, execute the move, get Leicester in behind a defence, whether that's a ball spread out wide, which he's more than capable of playing a great pass out wide, or whether that's playing a lovely little pass into Daka, running past him for Daka to kind of swivel and play the ball into him to get a chance and have a go. And he was nowhere near that Dewsbury Hall. I don't know where he was. I don't know if a Middlesbrough player accidentally put him in his shorts pocket and he couldn't get out. But that Dewsbury Hall performance was the worst I've seen this season, Chris. And somebody needs to sit down and have a word with his decision making, because his decision making on a rating out of 10 for that game, Chris, was a 0. He was so indecisive with his decision making, and that's the big key. His indecision, Chris. And this wasn't the first game that's happened. He's just got away with it on others, and we've clicked, and he's kind of clicked himself. We took 85 minutes to get a goal, and thankfully he was on the bench, because I don't think we would have scored had we not moved Cannon into the middle, because he wasn't playing that ball through to Vardy like Cannon was. And that is the scathing review of Kieran Dewsbury's Hall's Middlesbrough performance.
Not happy, and he wasn't the only one to. We should say he wasn't the only one to have a bad performance, but you know, yeah, I did. But you know, at the end of the, like I say, we're going to be doing this. You know, next time or whenever we do this show, which isn't a regular one because we do like our Sundays off, but we only ever seem to do these when we lose. So we are picking one
next season, mate.
yeah, it'll be every week next season if we do a Burnley. Sorry, mate. But yeah, look, you know, fair. He's had some good performances as well, but apparently Enzo was saying that he came to him during the January transfer window and says, "Look, I know I've been linked with other clubs, but I don't want to go anywhere." So fair play to him. And look, he had a bad day, and yes, again, you know, he's a good player. We know that, but yesterday just wasn't really good for anybody. Talking of which, Alan, who does our view from the pitch, as in not the fact that he's on there playing, but view from the ground, I should have said, gave a performance of 6 for the team, which I think you and me, Brad, thought was a little bit generous, but, you know, he sees a lot that goes off the ball that we don't on the TV. And I must admit, though, I do think that his decision for man of the match was a very wise and far-sighted decision.
Yeah, only because you slipped him a fiver to say it.
Dennis Pratt.
He was one of the few bright lights, let's be honest.
Yeah, and in fairness, you know, Alan said, "Oh God, it wasn't an easy one," which made me think he might go for Winks again. But no, he went for Pratt, who was what I went with Pratt as well. It wasn't that he had a brilliant game; he just had a less worse game than most others, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, very true.
Right.
No, I didn't give it anyone, did I, Chris? Because I didn't think 10 minutes of football warranted a man of the match.
No, you didn't. And fair play to you. You were going to give it to, well, no, I won't say because it might give something away later. But then let's have a look. Don't forget on Tuesday, I need to write this actually, I keep forgetting. That's it. Yeah, I get.
I was pointing at the author before I did the forward.
Oh, I wasn't sure what the finger was, to be honest with you. Tuesday, check out Fans Voice. You were getting my thoughts. No, it's not necessarily just on the game because they don't want us to give match reports, but a quick 200 odd words about something. I'm sure. After I find something to talk about after yesterday, that is on Tuesday. Okay, it is. I'm just looking at the time here, but we are going to be looking at player ratings straight after this.
Chris does it 3 hours a day.
Want to do it again?
5 days a week.
Oh, yes.
Just for you.
I love it.
On the Golden Breakfast Show.
This is Surrey Hills Radio.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Indeed, make sure you do that, as well as subscribing to LTID TV1. That's this channel that you are watching, and also our sister channel, LTID TV2, for the best in women's and quizzes, which will be starting up again very, very soon.
Yes, we have. They will, Chris, and I actually have a quiz in the making. It's going to be called, now, if any of you want to get involved in quizzes, this is not just a Leicester quiz, it's a football quiz side of things, because the Leicester quizzes is done on here, as Chris will tell you. So mine's open to any and all football fans, whether you want to be a women's football fan, a Scottish football fan, you poor sod if you are, or a League Two football fan. The quiz is called Remember the Game, and what it involves is it takes your club, so whether you're a Leicester fan, a Liverpool fan, and I will give you clues to try and guess what should have been a memorable game for your club's history. I'm working with it. I'm going to try and get a guest in so I can start working on some questions and some rules and regulations for it, but it will be called Remember the Game. So if you want to get involved in quizzes, you know, like I said, as long as you support a football team of any kind, and I can Google the research for them, I will be talking about some memorable games and putting it in a quiz format.
Thanks for the head up. I will have to do some artwork for that.
You've got plenty of time, because I haven't even got any yet.
You know what,
I've
guys?
just got an idea.
He's done one quiz over 4 or 5 times, million point drop. Excuse me. And we've got 4 or 5 other quizzes with all the artwork done. Did he want to do that? No, he's going to go and remember the game. So I will put something together for you, sir. I will put something together for you, as in, you know, the thumbnail. Okay, so let's start with, obviously, our goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen.
I gave him a generous rating, because I don't think he did a lot wrong, Chris. As I get the hair off my screen so I can see it, I gave him a 6, Chris. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't have a lot to do. Like you said, if he touched the ball 4 times, it was 1, 2, throw it back for kickoff. That was it. And he didn't have too many miraculous saves to make. He didn't really have, well, Middlesbrough only had 5 shots and 2 on target. So literally he picked the ball out of his net twice. I'm not going to give him low score because of conceding 2 goals, because I can't blame him for the way the goals went in. So yeah, I just gave him a 6.
Give him a 6. Okay, and these are all. We're not comparing this with anybody else. These are all.
No, because Jordan Blackwell's opinion's wrong anyway. No one cares what
it is. Right, working our way from left to right across the back. James Justin.
I've probably been a bit kinder than I should be with James Justin here, because I probably should have given him a 3, but I did give him a 4. And the reason I gave him a 4 is because that was probably one of his poorer games for us going forward. I mean, at one point, Chris, and it is embedded and living rent-free in my mind in that second half, he got the ball in our own half. He had 20 yards of space. He passed it into the space, and no player went near him, home or away. So no opposition player went to close him down. He had 10, 15 yards to run into and passed it to Philbert Fox. I'm not kidding, Chris. No blue or white shirt or whatever colour shirt it was the Middlesbrough players were wearing were in front of him. He just passed it straight out for a goal kick. And it was
I saw one where he did exactly the same and passed it out for a throw into them.
Yeah, and he did it numerous times, and he was so unjust in that aspect. And I think the only reason I say he saved getting a 2 or a 3 from me is because the job that he's technically paid to do, or the majority of the job he's paid to do as an inverted wing back, he did okay. I know they got caught out on a miscommunication between sitting deep and pushing high for that first goal. And we were caught high on the press for the second, but he wasn't overly troubled. It wasn't like someone was having a field day on that side of the field against him. I know he slipped, unfortunately. I think it was the first goal as well, maybe the second. I know he definitely slipped for one of them. But it was just the second part of his game that Enzo's asked him to do. He had a horror show. And if he had had a horror show at the other end, we'd have lost 4-5-0. The fact that he didn't is the only reason I gave him a 4.
Yeah. Right. The big Dane. The great Dane.
Missed two sitters.
Yes,
Well,
he did.
one sitter, one harder chance, but he missed 2 good chances to get Leicester in front originally and then nick a point for Leicester. I know Matt Elliott and Taggart do commentary for Leicester, but maybe he should have gone up there at the end of the game in the stands and taken notes off them, because they were centre forwards that knew how to, centre backs that knew how to head the ball into the net. Again, a bit like Justin got caught napping for that first goal. That's
very much so.
That's a defensive collective error. You can't blame Vestergaard. I'm not blaming Vestergaard for the goal, because that's a collective miscommunication that's led to the first goal. But the one thing you expect a 6'6" lamppost to be able to do when he wins a header, as well and as clear as he won them headers, Chris, is at least get them on target.
Yes.
And if not, he should have at least took that first one away. And unfortunately, in a weird sort of way, that one chance that he had was punished twice by Middlesbrough, because they then went and took the initiative and took the game.
But that first goal did show up his lack of speed, though.
And again, the first goal showed his frailties.
And your points for Yannick?
Oh yes, I forgot to mention. I gave him a 4. I gave him a 4. Probably because I felt like I'd already gave JJ a 4, so I had to kind of be just as fair with him, because few exploits were shown in that game.
And are you going to stick with 4 when we go on to Vout Phase? Vaz, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I very rarely differ, unless there's an obvious reason to. I very rarely differ with my centre-back ratings. And the reason is between that is they are the 2 point of calls that are in communication. If one pushes up, the other one has to do his job, and vice versa. And if they both push up, they both need to communicate to push up. And if they're both going to drop back, you know what I mean, Chris? And you look at both goals. One was there, one was here. One was there, and it was a bit of a mess. I don't know, Wout Faze likes to go and pretend he's a centre forward sometimes, and his pace allows him to do that. Yesterday, he got caught out a few times, being a bit too adventurous, being a bit too eager to press, and he got caught out. And he made a few recovery tackles that nearly bumped him up to a 5. But because I feel like the defensive responsibility is equal, good or bad, for both centre backs, I gave him a 4.
Number 4. And moving on to Ricardo Pereira.
You know, we talked about players that didn't stand out in a good way or a bad way. I think Ricardo, I've probably been a little bit harsher on him. I've given him a 5, Chris, because he honestly got a tackle that stopped Middlesbrough making it 3-0 and having a tap in for 3-0 and killing the game off completely dead. And although he wasn't as far forward and as adventurous as he has been in previous weeks, at least not until that last kind of 10-minute spell where we threw everything at them, he just wasn't really involved in the game as much because of it. You know, Fatawu and Pratt kind of had that link up more than Ricardo and Fatawu, which is what we're a bit more used to seeing. And I guess the game situation, finding ourselves 2 goals behind, played a part in that. But he wasn't as adventurous and as well seen as much on the ball as he has been. So that's why I gave him the 5, Chris, because he just wasn't quite at the races. Like most of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh God, I daren't ask for this. All I'm going to say is you're on your own, mate.
He's lucky Enzo dragged him off, otherwise it'd have been a 0. He indecisive on the ball. He frustrated Daka, Winks, Mavididi, anybody in front of him for that 60-odd minutes that he was actually allowed to stay on the pitch for, he frustrated by holding on to the ball, indecisive, making wrong passes, or then attempting passes at the wrong time. He's lucky Enzo took him off, because if he'd have played the 90 minutes, he'd have got a big fat 0. Because
Not
Enzo
impressed with him then, I think we can say, can't we?
Pardon?
Not impressed with him then, I think.
Well, I don't know. Could you pick up? I thought I was hiding that very well. That
No, mate. Unfortunately, I was able to pick that up. What did you score him?
I scored him 2 because I purely don't like odd numbers and couldn't score him a 1. I scored him a 2.
Fair enough. All right then. So that was Kieran. All right, Harry.
One of his more subdued games. The thing is, I think he suffered from, and I'm sorry, Dewsbury Hall fans, because I am a fan of him. I think he suffered because Dewsbury Hall was just not at the game. Like, forget not being at the races. I don't even think Kieran Dewsbury Hall turned up at the right stadium because he was left to have to manage 3 Middlesbrough players pressing him, and he didn't have his usual outlet all the time in Dewsbury Hall. He lost the ball in areas. His passing was also wayward at times, although he got more success. I mean, 89% success rate, you can't really begrudge it. You know, the first time he's dropped below 90 tells you how good and high a standard we hold him in. But there was still some moments where he got the ball in space, Chris, and we were sat here probably going, here we go. And then he'd pass it to a Middlesbrough player. We'd go, the fuck's that? And ultimately, it just never came together for him, and I gave him a 4.
You give him a 4. Indeed, you did, as we can see there. Steffi Mavididi, what did you give him?
I felt sorry for him. I think he shows that he's more of a danger, or considered a danger to managers and the opposition managers in an attacking sense than Fatu is, because they tripled up on him. He can drive into the box. He got into the box and tried to make a pass, and they cut him out. And he wouldn't have a bad game, actually. He was probably, we've kind of let Pratt's performance overshadow what he actually did or attempted to do, because it didn't come off for him. But he's definitely more of a threat because of how he drives into the box and how he attacks opposition defence. I give him a 6, Chris. I actually thought he was decent. And I think if he was going to take any winger off at half-time, he took the wrong one off. Because I think he would have caused chaos and eventually broke in their lines. I give him a 6.
I know what you're saying. I don't think he did take the wrong one off, but not for the... He didn't take him off for the reasons that he took, say, Dewsbury Hall off, because he was having a bad game. I think he took him off because he was being marked out of the game. So I don't think he had a bad performance. I just, any player would struggle with 2 or 3 players on them, wouldn't they? Dennis Pratt, Alan and mine's man of the match.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he gets he got a 2 from me for the fact that he was able to turn up fit and healthy and play. It was a miracle in its own right. But the odd bright spark that Leicester had before that spell of waves of pressure did come from Pratt. He did play balls down the right. He did play balls into Daka to try and get onto, and some of them were heavy touches and some of them didn't quite make it, but at least he actually attempted to make them passes, unlike some players. Dewsbury Hall, I feel like it's a Dewsbury Hall hate show for me. I swear to you guys, it's not. But he attempted the passes. He looks adventurous. I'd like to see him actually try and have a pop shot every now and then, because I know he's got it in his locker, Chris. He scored a few goals. Maybe he should be told to have a go some often, and maybe not leave that responsibility to Fatawu to drift inside and wildly blaze one over the bar or put it out for a throw in.
He was doing regularly, yes.
Yeah. And for me, I really appreciate his efforts. And if you're going to talk about giving players contracts, if he's happy to kind of probably be a squad player next season, he could be one that's in the talking to coming in the season. I give him a 6 because after some time thinking about it and I agree with you and Alan, and that's a scary thought, but he was our man of the match.
That is a scary thought, yes.
I know. It really is.
the aforementioned Abdul, Mr. Fatawu.
Wow, he's probably lucky that Kieran Dewsbury Hall was on the pitch and playing so badly, because that was probably Abdul's worst game for us. He tried everything that he usually does and just nothing came off. Crosses into the box, barely beating the first man. He couldn't get down the byline to cut in because Middlesbrough shut that option out. He was again, miscommunication doesn't help, because he was making runs and then someone was trying to pass it him short and he wasn't there. And when he was expected to make a run down the right, he came short. So again, that doesn't help his performance. But he's shooting from 25 yards out, Chris.
Oh.
I mean, 24 shots, and I think he took 7 of them. And even Elliott said, or Taggart, whichever one it was on the commentary, said it's all nice that he can curl them close to the goal, but he's not hitting them with any venom. So the keeper's got a good chance to save them. I think maybe Enzo needs to say, look, yes, have the odd chance, and if we're 2 or 3-0 up, fine, go for it then. But don't be having pop shots when we're 2-0 down that aren't causing them concern, because he can put a good ball in the box. That ball, I think it was him that put the ball in the box for Daka's header that he missed. He can put a good ball in the box, and I think he tried to be the hero in a game that needed a team performance to drag us out of it. And I gave him a 3, Chris. And I said I don't like odd numbers, but I think he needed to be higher than Dewsbury Hall, but lower than the 4.
Patson Daka was taking some stick off the fans yesterday for missed chances.
Well, he's a 5'6" bloke who I don't think has scored a goal ever with his head. So why we were surprised he missed his header, I don't know. I am sick of this Daka hate that people get, and I don't know if he's just a scapegoat this season, and maybe people are thinking, well, he cost us 20-odd million, so hopefully next season when we go back up, we'll flog him for 15 and get him out the door. I don't know. Maybe people have already washed their hands with him.
He cost us 10 million less than Slimani, and I think he's a better player.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. Slimani was a specialist, wasn't he? He was. Let's face it. He was born. He was brought for the Champions League. He was brought for that one-off attempt at the Champions League. Daka gets in the right areas of spaces, and again, indecision. Daka was in some positions sometimes where a little bit more forward thinking, a little bit more quicker pace, getting the ball forward, being a little bit more brave and taking your 70% chance success rate pass towards him instead of your 100% one, he could have had more chances. I mean, yes, he should have scored the goal. Yes, he should have at least hit the target. But in fairness of him, if it's on target, it was in the net, because he put it well past the goalkeeper. And also, I know it's not really his job, but why wasn't Pereira screaming in at the back post to make
I was going to say, why did we had nobody on that back post, did we?
No, because I remember, Chris, a game in I think it was the Great Escape season. It may have been the title winning season. Jeffrey Schlupp went down the left. I think it was against West Ham. He went all down the left and he scuffed a shot that was going to go wide. But because Joe had kept with him on the right-hand side, he toe-poked in at the post. And people said, oh, it was going in. It might have hit the post and gone in. The fact that he committed, he wasn't expecting Schlupp to miss, but he thought, just in case, I'm going to put myself in position. And someone just put in there, Adel doesn't score much, that's why Daka gets hate. 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 games. And maybe I've got them figures a little bit wrong, but I know them numbers have been floating around. And if you look at his collective goals, creations to games ratios, I think he's played 10 or 11 games for us in a run, or at least in this part of the season, and he scored 6 goals and got 4 assists. For me, I give him a 4, as you can see there, because he had that hilarious chance that could have changed the game, but he didn't also get a lot more service.
Moving on to the substitutions, so we'll speed through these because the programme's on at 9.
Oh no, I'm going to delay 20-minute talk about Varney. Here we go.
Anyway, so as we were saying, there we go.
You love my analysis too much, Chris, to keep me out of this.
Tom Cannon, half-time substitution, played out of position for me.
I mean, I gave him a 4 because Enzo saw sense enough to put a striker in his natural position and played him as a striker. Because I said this, Chris, until he moved him, the striker into a striker role, I didn't know he was on the pitch. I knew he'd come on because I told you at the half time, but I didn't know he was still on the pitch because he was out on a left wing, barely seeing the ball. And at some points, Chris, I actually saw frustration from him, and I liked it because he was doing that. It was like, what? He was almost signaling to Enzo, like, why have you put me here?
Yeah.
Because there didn't seem to be any trust on him to be able to do what the likes of Mavididi and that do. So I gave him a 4.
And Eunice?
Didn't know he was on. I don't think Enzo knew where he wanted to play him, whether he wanted to play him on the right, the middle. He couldn't make up his mind. Barely knew he touched the ball. I gave him a 3.
McAteer?
We need to have a bit of patience with him because he's lost confidence since that injury. You remember that Carabao Cup performance, Chris?
Yeah.
Lightning, red hot form, that injury. I actually gave him a 4, and whilst I am myself a little bit frustrated with him, we've got to be patient with him because we've got to build his confidence back up. Because he just doesn't seem to have that oomph in him, that fearless attitude to run past wingers, to run into the box like he was doing earlier season. And maybe that's something Enzo needs to work on with him, a little bit of individual management. But he got a 4.
This is the one that I said. I said I'm going to disagree with a couple. I kind of didn't change my mind on the one that you said earlier because I kind of took on board what you were saying. But this one, you were going to give him man of the match because he scored the goal. But that is against you saying you always hate giving the man of the match just because somebody scores a goal. So I disallowed that. Jamie Vardy, I've got him down as one of my shit players because until he scored the goal, again, was he on the pitch?
Well, he actually probably had our best chances. He had our only shot on target, Chris. He could have had. Striker. Yeah, okay, granted, but he had more shots on target than any of our front 5, Chris. He also missed a sitter, so he was in tandem with Daka. He missed a sitter. He could have. Jamie Vardy of old would have rolled that over the goalkeeper, and he'd have got a goal far earlier. And anything that was good in front of goal and clear cut was because of Jamie Vardy. You can get 2 minutes of brilliance from Jamie Vardy and he'll do what he did and score a goal for us. So I gave him a 6, Chris, because...
You did, and I think you must have been drunk because he'd have got a 4 from me.
Well, Boris sent me 50 quid, you see, in the post, so he said give me a 6.
Fair enough. Well, fair enough then. I split it with me and I'll agree with you. But no, I get what you're saying. He did score the goal, but he didn't make a huge difference when he came on. But look, he got the goal, which is more than anybody else did. And at the end of the day, this is your point score, so I'm not going to sort of, take it away from you.
Yeah, and you're wrong anyway.
This guy, now again, in fact, no, I think this was the one I was going to disagree with you on, possibly. He was only on for, 6 minutes, 7 minutes maximum, and I think he did more than a lot of the players that had been on for sort of 80-odd minutes.
Yeah, which is why he is second highest in my ratings, Chris. Vardy, Mavididi, and Pratt all got 6s, and he's joint second with Ricardo on 5. Because, Chris, in 6 minutes, Enzo had a free kick and a corner taker on the pitch. With 6 minutes to go, Chris, he put someone on who could take a fucking set piece. Excuse my French, but...
Yeah.
Oh, please.
I know.
Somebody teach Dewsbury Hall how to take a free kick in a corner. Please, Enzo. On your training sessions, get the first team out there and send all Brighton and Dewsbury Hall into the dome up at the top end of the training pitch and set out some codes and just let the guy practice how to take a bloody corner free kicking off this guy. Because for 6 minutes, Chris, we actually had someone who could put the ball in the bloody box.
He did.
Oh.
No, we did. And I would have probably actually gone for a 6 for him, but I'd take it. He was only on for 6 minutes. So, but yeah, he had probably better than a lot of the others that had been on longer. Now, the interesting thing is for the boss.
Yes, now this might confuse people. I'm sure it will. Given all the ratings I've got, right? I want anybody in the comment section. Oh, you've ruined me speech, Chris. I was going to say,
All right.
anybody want to guess where I've got the ratings from? What they give him? Because I'm probably thinking 6 is the highest rating. I bet he's given the manager a 3. The reason I gave him a 7, Chris, is whether we think he should have started with that lineup or freshened things up or not. He at least had the initiative. And you've got to remember, inexperienced as a manager is, and he's no fool to managerial, life. He's not a Scott Parker. He's got a brain, But the thing is, right? He tried to do something.
Yes.
He tried to put Leicester on the front foot in that second half, get us back in the game. He changed our tempo. He told them to be more direct. And yes, he made the substitutions, and it took him a bit late to realise that he needed to change the shape as well. But he did eventually change the shape, which, gives me a little bit of hope that we're going to see a little bit more of it in games. And I think you could use that narrow formation because he switched us. In that last 10 minutes, the clue in the change, Chris, was we went 4-3-1-2. We didn't play with wingers. I know Albrighton came on, but he was actually still a bit more in the middle. He was more like if you get a chance, free yourself up on the right and you can cross it in, but we need you in the middle so we can free Pratt up. And I felt we were a hell of a lot better in that situation. And I like the fact that he tried. Look, everything that we tried on Saturday, barring the goal, failed and didn't work, but at least he tried. That Bellend before, who's ruined Celtic, by the way, would never have rigidly changed.
No. And how often last couple of seasons did we see a swap at half time? Not very many. We've seen a couple this season, and he did do it quite early on. So fair play to him. He made 5 substitutions, so we couldn't sit here and go, "Oh, I haven't got 5 subs. You only made 2 or 3." He did, and I don't think to me, like I said earlier, for me, he took the right players off. He just maybe needed to tweak the formation earlier. But look, he's learning.
And at the end of the day, Chris, he can't go out there and kick the ball for the players. He can only ask them to do what he's asked them to do. It's up to them to deliver what he's asking, and unfortunately, they didn't.
No, they did not at all. And that's the thing. There we go. That's what I wanted.
You can see me 9 necks under there. Stop putting me so big screen.
Why do you think I've got a beard, mate? But
I'm gonna start talking like this on stream. I'll be like that. I've got no neck.
Put a hat on, you get a shade, mate.
I see.
But look, onwards and upwards. It's Friday at 8 o'clock, I think it is kickoff, or 7:45, one of the two. We will be live. No prediction league this week, guys, but still get your predictions in, obviously, and we'll put the table up for you. But the joy of having a Friday night match against Leeds. Brad, thanks so much for giving your Sunday up and coming in, mate. We've been quite calm for the first day of the fact that we lost, haven't we?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the position of comfort we're in probably helps that, and the fact that there's no thing you're doing it. But yeah, it's nice to lose a game. Well, it's not nice to lose a game. Nice to lose a game and feel. I love losing, mate. I love it. No, I know. You know what I was going to say. What I meant to say was, it's nice to have a bad result and not feel so about it. We're not kind of blowing that out.
Last bit's not going to end up on the clip. You know that.
Of course, I know it is. Brad wants to see Leicester lose. I can't wait to see the short.
Okay, mate. Well, look, thank you very much, mate. I'll see you on Friday. Take
care.
No.
I've got an 11.5 minute point to make, so you miss your show. No. Keep me on. Keep me here.
Anyway, he's waving in the background. Don't know who he's waving to. It's
Bye, everybody.
Point, mate. I can't miss trigger point.
I was signaling for help. I was trying to get people to petition me back in. No, I'll see you. If I don't see you before, I'll see you Friday night, Chris.
We will talk before then, I'm sure. Thanks very much. Don't forget, excuse me, sub to this channel, smash the likes on this video, LTID TV1, and don't forget to also go and sub to LTID TV2. And in the meantime, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. I got it right the first. No, I didn't. I got it right the second time. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. There you go.
He knows how to ruin a good catchphrase. See you next week, mate. All the best.
See you later. See you later, guys.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.